Today is August 13th, 2024. This is Committee of the Whole, Finance, Administration, and Communication. We have, I assume no one's online. We have 3, 4, 5 council members here. 2 are absent, and we will get started with our 3 items. And the first item is, I believe, the Finance Director Quarterly Overtime Report.
Good afternoon, Council. The quarterly overtime report, this is the through the second quarter of 2024. So we are at about the 75% benchmark of the budget. The overtime report really boils down to we are essentially at budget right now with looking at budget. There are a couple of things that will be occurring. The fire budget, if you look, they are currently over budget, approximately $700,000. There will be a budget adjustment coming to you to recognize revenue that they have received to reimburse them for overtime that they have expended. That will then bring our overtime budget under for overtime as a whole. But there is continued pressure then in the fire department. We expect that as we move forward, the fire department will become over budget in their overtime line item. That will then be absorbed by capacity that is available in their salary and benefit underspend. So we assume that at this point they'll be able to cover the overtime overage with savings in salaries and benefits. It is a close margin, and we've been working across the departments with AMI in fire to help put into place some management controls in order to ensure that fire and the overtime budgets remain within control through the end of the year. So we are, she's got a plan that we are working to implement. We are meeting on a quarterly basis to keep our eyes on this. Is there any questions for you?
Councilmember Stewart. I don't hear it. Nope.
Thank you so much, Director Cochran. I just had, and I really do appreciate the time and attention in the packet and your presentation on what's going on over in fire. I wondered if we could look at page 6 of the packet. We see the overtime, the drivers of overtime kind of across the last few biennium. And I'm just wondering, I know you all have been working so hard on the future year budget, but when we're working to be as close as we can to budget this time in fire for the overtime, and what we might anticipate the next biennium looking like. Would we expect that margin to come back closer to 2017, 2018 biennium, or how big will that portion of the bar chart be is my question.
So that is a remaining item for us to close out as we finish the development of the 25-26 budget. So we at this point have essentially all other components in place, but need to figure out exactly what is this data telling us, what is in our control for the next biennium and what is not. One of the interesting things that I noticed at looking at the overtime report is we are really not dealing with any more of those unexpected, global pandemics, things like that. So it's really coming clearer, I think, about what the next biennium looks like and what we can control. It doesn't feel as unknown as it did when we were setting up to have that conversation for 23-24. We still had pandemic precautions in place, and at this point we're dealing with union negotiation discussions as well as some budget goals. So we'll be sitting down and looking at exactly what does this tell us about how to implement. So some things to be able to figure out, but I will promise that that will be a part of our budget conversation. It's something I'm trying to understand as well, and really be able to put in something that we can deliver. So that's where I'm at.
Council President.
I guess a follow-up question on that. I think it was quite a few years ago, I believe Doug Hanma-Crane had worked on that analysis around kind of how we balance overtime versus additional staff. And there were some interesting recommendations there. And I don't know if we've ever kind of seen how those got followed up on. Are we using some of that report or that analysis that we did in going forward?
The analysis that he had done largely helped to inform union negotiations that were occurring at that time. I think it would be very interesting to take that analysis and look at what occurred after we actually implemented some of those recommendations. It is, I feel like things have evolved out of where we were. Some of the issues that Doug was analyzing were things that were addressed in the last union contract. And so I think the assumption is that at that point, some of the issues and struggles that we were having with some of the step pay structures that they had in place. So I think it's a good thing to look at, and I don't know if it's a part of current union negotiations, but I can check with Catherine.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Anderson.
Since it came up, can you give us a quick idea of what the schedule is for the union negotiation, just so we know?
Actually, I will need to have Catherine answer that for us when
Okay.
she comes up,
Sure.
so thank you.
Thanks.
It's in process.
Any other council comments, questions? I've got two. The revenue that you talked about, you seem to sort of state that it was directly related to the driver of overtime. Is that true?
There is a contract, I'll need to look up at this. It was from Duval, where we have done some work that we have contracted with Duval. We now need to recognize that revenue and then increase the overtime budget for police in order to bring them in alignment. So we've charged against their line items, but we didn't make their line item bigger yet. So we'll bring the revenue in, increase their budget, and they should be in alignment.
So that is not related to the fire department? Okay, got it. So it's not a cause and effect, it's a solution.
Yeah.
And so to that end, the second question, you talked about management tools. Are the management tools identified in general, or are the management tools specific to what we think are the drivers of the overtime that we're seeing in the fire department?
What AMI has been able to do is go through the fire department's budget and identify line items that they expect to see savings in, or line items that they can control expenditures for. So if there is too much budget pressure for the fire department, it is those efforts that we will either move to the next biennium or not move forward with. So she's working to control the expenditures from the department.
Great, thank you. Anything else? Councilmember Salahuddin.
Can you hear me? Okay. Just a quick question on the overtime cost breakdown where you mentioned attributed to the following. I think it's on page 2 of the individual packet itself, but you mentioned the filling higher number of vacancies in 23-24, as well as participation in the Eastside Metro Training Group. Could you sort of talk through those two pieces where, I guess, two different questions? The number of vacancies, are we still expecting those to be filled at this above average pace if for any other openings? And then the Eastside Metro Training Group, what's sort of the time commitment on that? And it says it's fully reimbursable, but how much time are we spending, or how many folks are on that?
I don't have that information, and I don't know, Ami, if you have that detail. Really, it's, so vacancies, do you have an idea of where you expect to be with firefighters by the end of the year?
See if my microphone works. Yeah. Let's see, hire a number of vacancies. Yeah, what we're experiencing in the fire department right now is retirements. A lot of people join the fire department and usually tend to stay with one agency for a long time. And what we are beginning to see and actually expect over the next 5 years is that there's probably going to be anywhere from 6 to 10 retirements over the next 5 years. So that's above and beyond the normal attrition. And it usually goes based on as you go through each of your probationary classes, you bring them all in and they start to attrition out. So that's part of what the kind of higher than expected. We also are coming off of the pandemic, and there was a large number of unexpected vacancies as a result of the vaccination work there. So that's also been something that we've been trying to, kind of recover back from that as well. But to be honest with you, we are still expecting, again, retirements to continue for, again, 5 years, out of the department with a normal amount of attrition that would normally be, a few positions here and there. In terms of the EMTG, that is 100% reimbursable, and the amount of staff that we actually have allocated is dependent on how many people we send into the academy. So there's a ratio of instructors to cadets that go into that program. So sometimes it's 2, sometimes it can be more. It just depends on how many offers we're going to make, and then that gets distributed. The other factor is how many entry-level cadets do we want versus we just are in the process of bringing in some lateral candidates and some exceptional. So they won't go through that EMTG academy. So we're offsetting the vacancies we have with some experience, which then means we'll have fewer positions that we'll be looking to hire for the next academy, which at this time we're looking somewhere at least about 10 people, again, to be able to go through there, and that may go depending on how many other retirements that we'll see before the end of the year. Does that help answer that? Okay.
Councilmember Anderson.
Since you brought it up, are laterals at the same level of pay as a regular firefighter that started here?
Yeah, they actually do get their service included. So when they come in with prior experience, that gets added into their total experience. So then they enter in at the step that they would have been at their other agency.
Great. The other question, just generally, will council have input on the CBAs this year?
That's out of my hand.
I believe that will come through. We'll let Catherine address that when she joins us.
Thanks.
Director Laird.
I thought we were going to get an answer. No?
Yeah, that was just my question. Since this is the item, I think it might make sense for her to come up at this point rather than during a separate item.
Okay. I thought
Just a
she was
suggestion.
coming up, so my mistake.
I wasn't sure. One of the things that we have already been able to address for the upcoming biennium is to identify the opportunities that fire tends to participate in over a budget process. We've been able to look back over the last few budget processes and recognize some of that work is ongoing and budget it as so we won't see some of these surprises or needs to catch up with budget adjustments.
Great.
Thank you,
Director Laird.
Catherine.
Hi, thank you. So the question came up about fire negotiation schedule. So you had asked that question. Currently, we're in process with the fire negotiations for the fire uniformed, and for their collective bargaining agreement, which will end this year, so December 31st. So we're currently in negotiations. We have not completed that negotiations. And then the other part of the question was, will council have input on the CBAs? Council would be notified as far as the outcome, of course, of the CBAs, and we can also share with council the strategy that we're working on for the CBAs. But we can't share specific details about that, unfortunately. So,
My question was, will there be an opportunity for us to provide input?
into the CBA, I can
A
provide.
question you can answer me later.
Yeah, thank you.
It sounds like an executive session item if council is involved, but we'll wait for your answer. Anything else from council on this item? I do want to say that the last 2 answers provided by the both of you give me a lot more confidence about not waiting for things to happen as opposed to understanding the cause and effect of what those kinds of things lead to. And I think that's really important to stay ahead of it. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Director Laird. So item 2, can continuing somewhat with a discussion like this is the budget process monthly update. Take it away.
Unless you want to stay. She's done a lot of work on the budget. I have 3 updates for you this afternoon. Our community engagement, civics results team work, our staff results team exercise, and then an update on our credit card processing fee project. And I've got Wanda Norman here to join me on that part when we get there. So first of all, for community engagement and outreach, the budget questionnaire went live last Thursday or Friday. It is the sort of a refreshed version of the questionnaire that we've been putting out annually now since the new budget priorities were identified for the 2021-2022 budget. We had 60 respondents by Monday morning, that's big for the budget. So feeling good about that. The civics results team process took place in July. We had invited the community members to come in and spend time with us sharing their interests, their concerns regarding DEI issues in the community, to provide us feedback on some investment ideas that had been proposed by city staff that have been working on budgeting for equity ideas. And we asked them to think about the future for us beyond what we are currently working on or the things that we touched on. What were some things that were front of mind for them or things that they think the city needs to focus on next? We were able to spend 4 hours with 4 people. So 2 separate sessions. We had 3 show for the first session in the morning and 1 for the evening. And although they were small in numbers, it was probably some of the most meaningful conversation I've had this year. It was very intentful. People that showed up to provide us with their time and their thoughts came really very well prepared. With not only thoughts of things that the city can do and implement and the ways that we can act to address things, but also really willing to share the feelings about some current conditions. And I really, really appreciated, vulnerability and opportunity to learn. What the conversations regarding our proposed investment areas really allowed us the opportunity for was to do exactly what we had hoped, which was kind of think beyond that. So our budgeting by equity, our budgeting for equity proposals mostly centered around translation or communication types of issues, being able to communicate in written form or in verbal form with people at the counter or out in the field, and lots of support for where the city was headed there, but certainly a lot of information of how that leaves still a gap for us when it comes to blind, when it comes to the deaf, when it comes to even those that are just more comfortable with things in writing than electronics. So a lot of information there. A lot of input on another issue that we touched on, which was ADA. So certainly a lot of conversations about how the way that our system is set up impacts people's lives, their ability to take a walk, and how that impacts their mental health and day-to-day life. So a lot of information, a lot of thoughtful suggestions that we are incorporating into the budget process. One of my favorite pieces of the discussion was regarding the definition of equity that we've been working on to help support the READY plan, and the input that we received from them and were able to incorporate into that. So being able to have that check before we move forward feels very good. On the staff results team side, Haritha and team facilitated a 3-day exercise that brought in all of the deputy directors from across the city to look at the proposed budget through an operational lens. And we changed the process this time to where they received a budget that had been filtered through the director's team and sort of had assurances that from the director's team perspective would address the strategies that we needed to help implement a lot of the initiatives that we are working on across the city, as well as address the operational needs that would be needed to not only support those initiatives, but keep the departments running. Typically, what the results team would receive was the departmental needs, and then they would need to work to consolidate that and figure out sort of, what is the right level of service for all of them. So what we gave them instead was a plan to react to enhance, to look at for gaps or risk that we aren't addressing or risk that we are or were creating. The biggest thing for me, in addition to that, was asking them to, again, think beyond where we currently are planning to go. So you will see a lot in the next biennium that helps to set the stage for where we go after the 25-26 biennium. And so they really helped to refine our plans when it came to that, or get us more focused in some areas. And they gave us feedback when they came back, really about some things that, from their perspective, they were concerned needed to be moved up. And we were either able to make that move happen or address the need, or why the director's team didn't see that sense of urgency and come to some common agreements there. So that process felt very, I think, complete for me. I felt as though the deputies were really able to see the work plan that they were creating, not just a list of single items that we were moving forward and, hoping that the concept was clear. It was just sort of a little bit more visual to see how it all works together. So feeling really great about that and how it informed the budget balancing process for the director's team. And then we've had the ability to go back to the deputies and let them know, what we were able to ultimately make work or what we've put off. And that worked out just fine. So any questions about those two budget items before I move to the credit card update?
Questions? Council President.
Appreciate hearing about all that and all the work to get that input. Is there going to be any more opportunities for community engagement other than our budget hearings, so we can make sure to let people know, or any efforts to kind of go out to community groups? I know that I think the mayor and council were invited to an event that Eastside for All and some others are putting on at the Together Center in early September. Will some staff be going to that, or will there be other kind of opportunities to reach out?
Within the city, we have the public hearings left. We have the budget questionnaire and the civics results team. At this point, other than that, we don't have any other plans. Certainly more than willing to join any groups that we are invited to. That's quite common. I am currently not, I don't have anything currently on my calendar, but it's quite possible the mayor or COO do.
Great, and I can forward along that invite in case it's helpful as well.
Thank you.
Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you. I'm going to scoot over a little bit. Really appreciate hearing about how things are going so far. Maybe to pick up where the council president left off, I do think having the civics results team so limited in participation numbers, it does mean the door is a little bit open to, we may stumble into things where we still have community input to hear, and that is our job, the 7 of us. So we will take that on from here as well. In the staff results team, so that's a little bit different. am I correct in remembering that in the past, the deputy directors essentially ranked the budget offers by from in a numerical way? Is that correct?
Many budget cycles ago, that was really the exercise for both the civics results team and the staff results team, was really to look at our baseline budgets, every budget cycle, and re-rank them. And what we found over time is that it was a lot of work, and our baseline offers really don't change. We really don't add a new service unless it's part of a council conversation during the biennium, or if it's something that is brought up during the budget process. So because of the time it takes, we really have moved to really emphasis on sort of the new things that we're doing, or gaps that we have. So it's been a while since our baseline offers have been really ranked against each other. We had a hard time with that as well for many cycles, because it's very difficult to rank fire service against the water utility. So it was always appreciated. It was difficult to figure out, how do we use that information? So we moved more to something that we could actually ask for the advice and then sort of know what to do with it.
Mm-hmm. And thank you. And then your assessment was that then going back to the directors and then reporting back to the deputy directors. You said it worked out just fine. Could you give us a sense of how did the as a collective, the deputy directors, did they also feel like, from their perspective, things worked out fine too, and everyone is feeling good about this stage of the process?
Yeah, I do. Yes, excuse me. Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
Very well. The approach that we took was to work with a set of that team that acted as advisors. They worked with us to make sure that the process was fair, equitable, understandable, easy to execute, and easy to go back toward to later and recall why we made certain decisions. So to have the ability to work with a team ahead of time before putting an assignment in their lap was a great improvement. The exercise, I will say, started off a little off. Because really the thought was, if you're giving me a plan that's already been vetted through the director's team, what am I here for? And I think over 3 days, we learned what they were there for. So it is up to them to operationalize and to deliver those plans. And so through the exercise of walking through what it was that was being queued up, what type of commitment it would take from each department, then you started hearing the, well, what if this and what if that? So in the end, I think that it did a lot more than just get some budget decisions. I mean, it is the formal start of a work plan and collaboration.
Well, thank you. And it sounds like congratulations to Haritha for facilitating such a successful process then. I mean, it's important to me to know that at this point we're still feeling like one city, and that we as a council members don't inadvertently walk into some dynamic we didn't know was there. So that's helpful to hear from you today. Thanks so much. And thank you to all the directors and deputy directors and your entire team who've been working so hard this summer on this.
Doing a good job.
Thanks.
Council President.
Just one quick follow-up on the ranking question. So, and I think it makes sense to do something different if it's not quite serving the interests. I do believe when we were looking, I think at the proposed reductions or enhancements previously, we were able to see some of the rankings on those ones. So how will the kind of feedback be shared with us during the budget process if it's a little different than a numerical?
You will still be able to see we're bringing service enhancements forward to you, and you'll be able to see the ranking by the deputies team as well as by the civics results team.
Okay, those will still have ranking.
Yeah, so there are only certain investments that the civics results team has had the opportunity to talk through, and we'll make sure you know what thoughts they had there. Not only by looking at the budget offer, but we'll be providing you with a report on really a rundown or a summary of the civics results team exercise as well as the staff results team.
couple quick comments. I appreciate Councilmember Stewart stating a truth, which is that we on council can have a responsibility and have the capability to reach out to the community during the budget process. I know that a couple council members hold regular office hours, so if they reach out to you, you'll be able, you would support and attend their office hours if invited, right?
Of course.
Okay. And then the other thing is, I really appreciate the work of trying to understand both from our current and past work and extend that or extrapolate that into the needs of the future, and then making this budget intersect with that future, which I believe is, in my words, what you described, and I really appreciate that. The question, and you don't, wouldn't have to answer it tonight, is at some point we like to be data-driven, we like to be fact-based. With your new systems in place, will you be able to use those systems to leverage these concepts and ideas and find support for our conclusions?
I believe that we have made the decisions necessary to ensure that we are able to make those improvements that we need to, that we'll be able to take the data from across the city and start to pull that together and tell those stories citywide. So I think we're set up to do that, yes.
Perfect, thank you. I see nothing else, so thank you.
I just have one last thing,
sorry.
which is
I forgot,
which
the
is
credit
Wanda,
card.
our star
Credit card, yeah, my fault.
project manager, who's sitting here so kindly. So Wanda was tasked with what seemed like an easy project. Just go and help us collect, go help us kind of recoup the cost of the fees that we pay when folks are paying by credit card. And she has done a phenomenal job with a project that was not so simple. So much of the project is live, and we are well down the path. For the utilities, those conversations have been more complex, and she has been ensuring that we are taking all of the steps along the way to make sure that we are legally compliant when it comes to not only how our city attorney looks at us, but also how Visa and those that require those regulations of us. And so she is here to really share whatever she has, but we expect to be live by the end of the year. And I will tell you that looking through that decision through the lens of the forecast, it was a really beneficial decision for the city. So thank you. And I'll pass it off to Wanda just for any words.
Well, we discovered, because we're a government, to do a convenience or service fee on debit credit cards, we have to belong to a Visa registration program. So that is underway, and that's going to take a couple months. So we are going live with utilities on October 1st. We're good to go with them. Communication, you guys may have seen that in the newsletter from the mayor. There's a lot more communications going out for utilities. The rest of the systems, we have to get through that Visa regulation program. So we're looking tentatively at a November 1st. We don't want to communicate that out till we get a agreement from Visa on when they can have us registered for the program. So.
Thank you.
Questions on that? I have one quick comment on that. I was one of the council members who was impatient and saying, come on, this is going to take a year. What's wrong with you guys? And I believe it's council president that actually advised on caution and said, this may take more time. So I'm giving credit to Councilmember Kritzer on that. And I appreciate the work and the complexity of this. So thank you.
Thank you. All right.
So now we move to item 3, which is presentation of salary commission candidates. I think this is perfect, that we have plenty of time to address this, talk about it, and provide direction. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me back. Catherine Laird, Human Resources Director. So I'm here to talk about, to review the Salary Commission candidate selection process. And again, I'm seeking your approval to confirm during council consent on September 3rd. There are 7 identified candidates who are selected to make up the council, or the commission, excuse me. So let me just explain the process. So we advertised originally in May and again in July at council's request. We conducted, the advertising included conducting a variety of social media advertisements. We did 2 direct mail campaigns, up to 43 emails were sent. We did a press release to 6,500 subscribers. We advertised on the city's website, and we sent an email out to 12,500 subscribers. So we tried really hard to get the word out. Since July, 15 candidates applied. 1 candidate was not qualified to be interviewed, and so because that candidate did not live within the city limits, and then 2 candidates withdrew before being interviewed. So we interviewed the remaining 12 candidates, and the interviews were by myself and Bob Sturbank, again, attorney with Foster Garvey, and he will staff along with me the Salary Commission. And then separate interviews were by the mayor and Chief Operating Officer Melissa Files. The mayor then selected 7 candidates. All of 7 accepted the offer to move forward in the process. So the 7 candidates are listed in your FAC agenda memo. And so once they're confirmed on September 3rd, all the 7 candidates will be sworn in, and then they will meet every other Thursday starting on September 12th. And the goal is to have the process done by the end of October. So it'll be about 4 or 5 meetings is what we're anticipating. And we asked all the candidates, and they all committed to participating fully in the process. So we anticipate it's going to be a good process. So again, I'm here seeking your approval to confirm the 7 candidates on September 3rd.
Council questions? Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you. I have 3 quick questions. You said since July, 15 candidates applied. Was that 15 new candidates in addition to those that had, I guess I'm looking for the total number of applications?
Yeah, so originally there were 8 candidates, and so we got an additional 7.
Great, okay. Thank you for letting us know. Have all the candidates agreed to complete their Open Public Meeting Act training
Yes.
prior to the first meeting?
That was definitely a question we asked each of them, yep.
Great. And you said that they agreed to participate fully in the process. Does that include participate in the full schedule as you just described it?
Yes. So, and we're encouraging them to participate in person, although we can set it up so that it can be remote if necessary. Yeah.
Other questions? I've got one.
Okay.
So given the history of what happened before with the mayor deciding that the work of the previous commission was, I think the words were unreasonable, when the mayor interviewed these candidates, was there a script? Was there criteria? Was there parameters for those interview questions?
We did have interview questions that we followed for each candidate.
Including the mayor?
Yes. Yeah. The mayor had questions and we had questions.
Right.
So there were 2 different interview panels, if you will.
Understand that.
Yep.
But they were predetermined, and you can extract that expectations and criteria from those questions.
Yes. Yes.
And can those questions be made available to council?
Yes.
Okay. I have no other questions. Councilmember Nova Camina.
Thank you, Councilmember Fields. My question is around, since the last salary commission predated me, I'm curious to know if the same structure of interview or the same questions were used with this round as with the one from the previous go-around.
No, it was a different process in the first go-round. So no, the questions weren't the same.
Of course, that's going to beg me to ask the question of, great, what's changed?
We learned a lot from the process last time, and so we were very careful in what we asked and how we did the process. So much more thorough, detailed, bigger advertisement process, all that. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? So I don't see any questions. I want to make sure people have time. That's a hand up, right? Yes, Councilman President.
I don't have a personal question, and I'm okay with this moving forward. I do want to note that I got a message from Council Vice President Forsyth, who wasn't able to join today, who noted that she was in favor of postponing the salary commission until next year due to staff support and capacity needed for the budget. Just wanted to note that since she had sent that message to me to share that. I personally don't agree with that, but I did want to note her comment. I think we should move forward from my perspective at this time. Thanks.
I appreciate that. I was going to mention that because I was on the same email, but I'm glad that you did it. And I think that we should move forward with this as well. So I would ask the council, this has been requested to go on consent. What I would like to see, Director Laird, what meeting are we talking about, by the way?
It's the first business meeting? Yeah.
In September. So that's plenty of time for you to provide council the questions, which I think are the basis for us understanding the expectations as well. I guess the question for council is, are we good with this going on consent, or do we want to see it on new business? So first question, consent, thumbs up. I think a shrug is as good as a thumb up. I think we are, yes, put this on consent. We always have that option. If between now and then something comes up, a council member can certainly pull it off consent, and we can deal with it then. So right now you have it.
Great. Thank you so
Appreciate it.
much.
Thank you. And with that, Salahuddin.
Do just have a really quick logistical
Sorry,
question,
Director.
Director Laird. When it says other, is there a blank, fill in the blank for how did you hear about this opportunity? Do they share? What type of other?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of your question.
So there's a question, how did you hear about this opportunity? Press release, city newsletter, and then a few applicants indicated other. Is there a fill in the blank?
Yes.
Okay, could we get that information as well?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Great. And that, are we good? Anything good for the order? I see nothing, so we are adjourned. And thank you very much.